Hello, folks. Welcome back. It seems necessary to put out a few videos to refute the hatchet job that's coming from CNN. Just when you thought that perhaps this would be a legitimate news network once again, they prove that they're nothing but an agenda-driven leftist propaganda outlet. What am I talking about? This documentary, or as I prefer to call it, a mockumentary or a shamumentary that's coming out from CNN.
That is fear-mongering to pursue the agenda of white supremacy.
You think Trump is pursuing a white supremacist agenda?
Yes, I think so.
So says the failed justice minister who's been embarrassing South Africa's foreign minister since the moment he took up the post in a country from a political party that's pursuing a black supremacist agenda in South Africa. 145 race-based laws restricting the employment of white males in positions in management in the private sector. White supremacy. Helping racial minorities escape South Africa. That's white supremacy. Coloreds, Indians, whites. What is he taking for his delusions? Folks, in the interest of full disclosure, so that you are fully aware of what's going on here, CNN contacted me earlier this summer and asked me if I would be interested in being interviewed by CNN about South Africa in advance of the G20 summit. I said, yes, I'm interested. What do you want to cover? Well, we'd like to talk about the refugee program. We'd also like to talk about the events in South Africa, their economy and such. I took them at their word. Now, I should have known better than to treat them as a legitimate news organization. And I will say up front, to be clear, that the producer of the segment was very professional, very polite, very helpful. CNN also paid for me to fly to Birmingham, Alabama, and paid for my accommodation. So thank you for that, CNN. But a leopard cannot change its spots. This is not news. This is nonsense.
With the program to take the white Afrikaners from South Africa.
A program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa? Once again, South African government officials are lying about the program for their own political purposes, and CNN is allowing them to get away with it. There is no program to take white Afrikaners from South Africa. The program is for racial minorities and has to date included Afrikaners, coloreds, Indians, and white South Africans in general. That's not a white Afrikaner program. And by the way, why does Ronnie Lamola to refer to them as white Afrikaners? Shall we call him a black Swati, Shangan mix? Shall every time we discuss a black South African's ethnicity, call them a black Zulu or a black Tswana or a black Venda? That's just race hustling, dog whistle garbage. Of course they're white. They're Afrikaners who are by and large white.
It's a clear program to back up the issue of white supremacy.
A clear program to back up white supremacy? How? By letting coloreds and Indians come into the country? How exactly is that white supremacy? I think this guy's confused about white supremacy and what it actually is.
And when you look at the Geneva Convention, they don't fit the definition of a refugee.
Now, Lamola says, look at the Geneva Convention. They don't fit. Really? He doesn't fit. Lamola is referring to refugees as defined and protected under the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol. And he simply lies. He flat out lies. Either he's not very bright or he's a propagandist. These treaties define a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. And the people who've come over who've been vetted, that's exactly what they are, a well-founded fear of persecution because of their race. O'Sullivan never challenges Lamola's lie here. Now, perhaps he will in the documentary, but he allows the lie to get oxygen in this little titillating clip on Twitter, which is intended to draw interest and also pollute the argument. Of course, Lamola is full of it. And finally, we come to the moment when Donnie O'Sullivan has an opportunity to be a genuine journalist, but he chooses to be dishonest about the refugee program, even after I informed him of the facts and directed him to the source for the information at the American Embassy in South Africa on their website.
The U.S. refugee program next year is basically being limited to only white South Africans.
Folks, this is not journalism. It is yellow journalism. Fake news intended to create a false narrative. Now, back to the interview. I was interviewed after they finished with Errol Langton, and it was perfunctory. And it was obvious to me at the time that there was no intention to include me in the documentary. It was just a sham show. They interviewed me. We rushed to some local school where someone was mowing the lawn or a generator or something was running in the background. It's very distracting, hard to focus. You don't do that with a guest. You don't take them in a place where they're uncomfortable, where there's lots of distracting noise so they can't focus on answering your questions. But that's what they did to me. They wired me up, and then he asked me questions. And he basically wanted me to lie about President Trump and the program. And I didn't. I stated the facts. He didn't like that. So when I contacted the producer recently, he said, unfortunately, you're not in the broadcast. You weren't included in the documentary. And you know what? If I made it onto the floor in the cutting room, I'm perfectly fine with that. So there's no sour grapes here. Thank you for the free trip to Alabama, CNN. But how about you become a genuine news organization and not a leftist shill and a publication and a broadcaster that tells fairy tales? This documentary is disgraceful. It was intentionally prejudged as to what it was. It's not even remotely objective. And it's completely dishonest, trying to create a narrative about racism. And what is this nonsense? He comes in here in the interview with Earl Musk, in the segment he has with Earl Musk, where he talks about in 20 years, America will not be a majority white country. Well, in 5 minutes, Ireland won't be a majority white country. What about that? Why don't we talk about Ireland if you're so concerned about race? Not a real network, just a propaganda outlet. What a disgrace. What a disgrace. So sad to see.